5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As the heel turns with Gaz, Vinny, Dan America, and the Tig Man. This week, the guys discuss the top 5 best commentators in wrestling history. You just made the list!
The crew is back for another edition of As the Heel Turns, post-WrestleMania As the Heel Turns, and we'll get to our WrestleMania thoughts a bit later on. But first we start with the top 5 broadcasters in wrestling history, the top 5 commentators. What makes a good commentator? Is it storylines? Is it the emotion? Is it that making you laugh out loud? We're going to talk about all that and more right here on As the Heel Turns, and I will get things going. It's Gaz, Tigman, Dan America, Vinny here with you again for another edition. My number 5, it feels like the most controversial for me because the pool we're picking from this week is a lot smaller than what we're usually used to, whether it be a pay-per-view, matches, wrestlers. It's a smaller pool this week. I can't believe this guy's at number 5 for me. I have Michael Cole at number 5.
Oh, no, you went there.
I have Michael Cole, and here's why.
Why is he even on your list?
Here's why I have Michael Cole.
Yep, not on my list
because at some point, whether it be 2020, whether it be 2022, the stats, and I guess this is the sports side of me coming out, Michael Cole's resume is going to be up there with all of the great commentators of all time. The tenure in the WWE, how long he lasted in the business, the classic clips he has as a backstage commentator or broadcaster with The Rock. At some point, I know who he followed, and that guy's name will be brought up a bit later on. But when we look at the resume, I think Cole has played his part right. Except that one thing he had with Lawler in that feud, he's been the straight man. He's let other people be the star. I have Cole at 5.
See, I debated. I almost put Cole at 5, but I'm just like, I just have fond memories of other people, so I couldn't, but I debated it. And he, like you said, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. No doubt. His resume is one of the best.
Michael Cole is the personality of a wet noodle.
Oh, don't.
I do not like Michael Cole. To me, he's like a mindless mouth puppet. He'll give 6 promos in a match, but he won't tell you who won. Michael Cole annoys me. Sometimes I want to reach in my TV and smack him in the head and tell him that's called a suplex, not a maneuver.
Is that because he's more of like a straight man broadcaster? Is that why? Because he's so different than the other ones we've had.
He's just too much of a stereotypical broadcaster, like no personality. Oh, like, what are they saying in that headset? Hey, Michael Cole, why don't you mention the network again and what's going to be on the network tonight? Pay no attention to what's going on in the ring. Don't look at the ring, Michael. Just do what we're telling you to do. I swear that's what they do with him.
An interesting note on Michael Cole. He didn't make my list, but I do want to point out where I grew up. I grew up in Dover Plains, a small town in Dutchess County, New York. Michael Cole is from just up the line, about 10 minutes, Armenia, New York. He is from Armenia. He went to the school, which was just up the line from Dover, where I was. So the local barber I know in Dover actually used to cut Michael's hair.
Wow.
And I used to talk about, when I go in there as a kid, not as a kid, when I was in junior high and all that, talked about, oh yeah, Michael Cole, he works for the World Wrestling Federation. He used to come in here. So he's a local guy. I probably should have gave him.
Any stories about Cole?
I didn't get any background story.
I have a story.
All right.
Anyway.
Let's hear it.
I have another fun fact, and Vinny will appreciate this. Vinny, did you know that Michael Cole was in the same class as Mike Flynn?
I remember him saying something about that.
Mike Flynn showed me a picture of his class, and Michael Cole is right there. Mike Flynn was our radio instructor at NSRT.
Oh, okay.
And he actually went to the same class.
Like high school, is this, or is this college?
New school.
It's Syracuse University, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, he went to the same school as Mike Flynn, a.k.a. Jammin' Jim Steele.
Nice.
And,
also, Mike Flynn, Jammin' Jim Steele, is good friends with Todd Pettengill.
Wow.
And his first on-air interview was with Macho Man Randy Savage.
Todd Pettengill, by the way, awful commentator. Did not make my
He
list.
didn't make mine
He
either.
wasn't a commentator.
We didn't
That's
make the
why he's
list.
awful.
Well, remember him and Rob Bartlett?
That's right.
They'd be that.
Yeah, Rob Bartlett brought that down.
He did. There was some funny moments with Bartlett, but
Who's number 5 on your list?
when he
Tig?
did impressions.
number 5 on my list might surprise you guys because you don't think of him much commentator nowadays. Hasn't been on the scene behind the commentator table there, but Vince McMahon.
That's my number 5 too.
Yeah, that's right. Wow, me and Dan have this. Yeah, Vince McMahon. Memories as a kid. It all goes back. With me, it's always nostalgia. But my favorite time of wrestling was the mid '80s to the early '90s, and getting up in the morning on a Saturday watching superstars of wrestling. Vince McMahon and Jesse the Body Ventura. 1, 2.
Oh, he didn't get it.
Yes, I thought he did a great job at it.
Superstars of wrestling.
I put him number 5 on my list.
He's number 5
Vince
on mine
McMahon.
as well.
Wow, you kidding?
I'm not kidding.
3 of us.
I was the only one, and I had McMahon at 6. It was between him and Cole for mine,
okay.
so we were all pretty close on McMahon.
So McMahon, not quite good enough to make the top of the list, but he definitely deserved recognition. We were all thinking that list.
Oh, yeah.
And he almost made your list.
Yes.
Literally the 1, 2. Oh no! I'm just saying that had.
He may have the greatest call in wrestling history when Michaels wins the championship. The boyhood dream
has come true.
Like, you could take that call and push it to any sports event, like winning the Stanley Cup, winning the Super Bowl. You could put that anywhere else and it would work.
Or you could also put that must be Kane.
That's the only reason I left him out, by the way, because sometimes the oversells of McMahon are so oversells of all time.
That's why I put him at number 5.
exactly
he had
why
a
he's
product and he sold it. And he sold it like nobody else could. And that's what makes Vince McMahon a great commentator, because he's Vince McMahon.
So you have him at 5, Dan America. Vinny had him at 5. So I guess I'm going to swing back around here and go number 4 on my list.
If you steal my number 4, I'm throwing this pen at you.
Oh, I might steal your number 4 because this guy on my list, I've told Levac this before on our show. We're talking about anybody alive right now. Somebody I would like is number 1 on my list of people to interview. And this guy is Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah, Jesse.
I'm not actually going to throw my
Was
pen
it number
at you,
4
but
for you too?
You have my
Wow.
number 4.
Look at that. Jesse the Body Ventura. Hey, listen here, McMahon. Like, he became the first, at least from what I can remember, the first heel broadcaster where he worked against McMahon and became a character. He had the costumes. He was laugh out loud funny. He was the governor of Minnesota. Jesse the Body Ventura for me at number 4 on my list.
Now, did you ever?
Didn't even make mine.
There's a Survivor. I forget which Survivor Series it is. Might be Survivor Series 3. What made Jesse on my top 4, within my top 5 or my number 4, is how he used to rip into Hogan.
Oh, he was great. Great at that. And a matter of fact, Jesse did make my list, and I will tell you that he was at number 3 on my list.
Ooh, number 3.
Definitely one of my favorites. So close. We were close there, but we both, 3 of us had Jesse. Vinny didn't have Jesse on the list. Very surprising. But that could be the age gap where maybe you weren't watching much back then when he was.
I wasn't alive.
Yeah. So you weren't watching much back then.
What do you expect?
I'll give you my number 4 here. I put good old JR.
Oh, this is
4.
sacrilege.
And I will tell you that JR, great play-by-play commentary guy. But for me, it was more so the WCW days. A lot of great memories for me growing up watching WCW, and I really respected his commentary during those days. Great in the WWF, WWE, of course, but for me, it was the JR of WCW, actually. And I put him at number 4.
This may be the first age difference, or like second compared to Jesse the Body Ventura, because I have JR on my list. Do we want to send it this way? Does Dan America and Video want the first crack at JR? Because I have him on my list. Do you two both also have JR?
I had him on my number 2.
I have him on my list, but do I let it go now?
I think you let it go. Let's go Dan America first for 2, and then we'll let you and me have at it here.
Well, JR is my number 2. Mm-hmm. So how about I give my number 3?
Okay, give your number 3.
Because so far, somebody's already had my number 5 and my number 4. I'm not going to go number 1, but I will go number 3 because he's probably somebody else's number 2 or possibly somebody else's number 1? And if he is, then don't go bananas, because my number 3 is Gorilla Monsoon.
My
On
number
my
3
list.
as well. My number 3 as well.
My number 3 as well.
Oh, wow.
I knew we were going to have very similar
Really?
picks here. Go with Gorilla Monsoon. Why he's number 3 for you?
Gorilla Monsoon is my number 3 because not only did I grow up with Gorilla Monsoon, I started watching, late 80s, early 90s, so superstars of wrestling, primetime wrestling, all the pay-per-views, and then when you go back, it's Gorilla Monsoon on the mic for most of the WrestleManias, and it's just the way that Gorilla Monsoon did it. He was like that big, hairy uncle. He
was.
He was like that big, hairy uncle that was going to tell you about wrestling and what was going on in the ring with wrestling. And he wasn't going to say anything bad about anyone. He was always, really modest. If anyone kept it PG and good, it was Gorilla Monsoon. And, of course, there's his catchphrases that everybody loves. When he was with Brain and all that, oh, would you stop? And the whole, this place gonna go, bananas.
They are literally hanging from the rafters.
Yeah.
How about when the sleeper hold was on? Roddy Piper's got the sleeper hold on somebody. Good night, Irene.
Gorilla Monsoon's the best.
Stick a fork in him, he's done.
Oh,
Right in the kisser.
And I got one more. You can cut the electricity with a knife.
Yes, that's Monsoon.
You see, guys, I just have to tell you because growing up, and Gorilla Monsoon, I think, was the greatest of all time. He's my number 1.
Ooh.
I had to
Number
let it out.
1, Gorilla Monsoon.
Gorilla Monsoon is my favorite of all time.
Here's the thing about Gorilla Monsoon, and this is, again, a little bit of me just being a super fan and also wanting to be a broadcaster. So now I have both. I have the broadcasting side of it, and I have the wrestling side of it. I didn't realize for the longest time that Gorilla Monsoon was a wrestler. There was a point in his life where he was in the ring. He went up against Muhammad Ali, I think, at one point.
That would have been before all of our time.
Right.
We grew up watching him behind the broadcasting.
So not you, Tig. Stop being bashful.
So
I'm not quite that old.
So if you remember, John Madden in the NFL, his broadcast partner was Pat Summerall. Pat Summerall was a kicker in the NFL, but because he was so good at his job, you forgot about him as a wrestler. A few athletes have ever had that happen where you forgot. Like The Rock now, there are some fans, believe it or not, that forget The Rock was a wrestler.
Yeah.
They think of him as the actor, Dwayne Johnson.
Wow.
There are some people who think of, Michael Strahan at one point, will forget he's a football player. They'll think, oh, he does the stuff for Good Morning America. The fact that he was so good at being a broadcaster, people forgot that, is why also Gorilla Monsoon is number 3 for me. Did he make your list?
Gorilla Monsoon made my list. JR made my list. I'm just going to go with both of them here.
All right. Go.
First off, because we're on Gorilla.
Yeah, go with Gorilla first.
Gorilla, number 3, for all the reasons everybody has explained. Also, how he has transcended generations, because even people our age and people younger that are super fans know about Gorilla. He's called some of the biggest matches in wrestling history. On top of that, go back and watch one clip, WrestleMania 15, when he was one of the judges in the Brawl for All. That crowd in Philly, they went bananas. That was the last television appearance for Gorilla Monsoon before he passed away. I don't know.
Yeah, he was ill at the time.
He was very ill, but he got a standing ovation. And I just thought that was amazing. That shows he hadn't been on TV in 4 years. He transcends the industry. And
how big was Gorilla Monsoon? Like 6'8"? Like what? He was billed at like 350. He was an unbelievable, massive, just human being. He was a real life gorilla, basically.
Yep.
Oh,
he
yeah.
really
Certainly
was.
was.
I'm going to swing it back to Dan America because we brought up Jim Ross, JR. You had him at 2 on your list. Why do you love JR so much? Yeah.
Well, because he's JR. He is the epitome of wrestling broadcasting.
You just love his barbecue sauce.
No, I
do love that.
I've actually never had his barbecue sauce. I would like to.
Yeah.
But when I think of JR, I think of, this is the way it's supposed to be. He calls the moves. He gets excited at the right moments. JR sold storylines better than the wrestlers. What was that really stupid Halloween Havoc match? The Chamber of Terrors,
Chamber of Horrors or whatever. Yeah.
When they put Abdullah in the chair and everything, JR's selling it better than Abdullah. And that was just like the thing with JR is that he could sell anything. He can make anything seem way more important or way more serious than it really was. The wrestlers would be laughing about what they're doing in the ring, but you have JR over on the side going like, there's a very intense moment in the ring right now. There's a stare down. They're smiling, but they're good God Almighty.
Vinny, for you, why do you love JR? Where's he on your list?
JR, for me, he is at number 1.
Number 1.
And he is at number 1 for a lot of reasons. He was the main announcer when I started watching wrestling. He actually was my inspiration to get in radio. Just the broadcasting aspect of it. He is amazing. He's good at calling matches. He can do color. He can do play-by-play. He can do comedy. He even... Well, at least tried to wrestle. Jay took a really good blade job from Triple H. That was amazing in 05. JR, to me, well-rounded as an announcer. He could interview. I mean, he came under the tutelage of Gordon Solie, which I guarantee none of us have on our list because we were WWE guys.
Right.
But when it comes to Gordon Solie, if I'd watch more of his stuff, very well, he could be at number 1. JR had a very good teacher.
I thought about, Vinny, putting Gordon Solie on because I remember from the NWA WCW days, he was still doing some of that in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was great. Me and my buddy Joe, best friends, big wrestling fans, the two of us, we talk about how great Gordon Solie was. I wrestled, quote-unquote, with the fact of putting him on the list, but it didn't happen.
And me and Gaz had spoken about that, how we were wondering if anybody in this room was going to have Solie. It would have been you because you were the only one that really experienced that time
I would have
frame.
put him at 5 in place of McMahon if he ended up making the list.
And it's no disrespect to him.
No.
It's that we just don't know his stuff as much.
Exactly.
And also, at some point, the business itself, these guys may have become bigger names. I mean, Jim Ross, Vince McMahon, and everybody else are just, and Ventura, for what he did outside of the ring, just became a bigger name. Also, number 1 on my list is good old JR, Jim Ross. I remember one of my early jobs in radio, the host I was working for at the time as a producer and like a fill-in anchor, we booked JR as a guest, and I was freaking out. Like, I was like, this is it. Like, if I am done with radio after this, I'm good. I wasn't even interviewing him.
In studio or
over
on the phone?
Over the phone.
Okay, how did it go? Yeah.
It was amazing. Like, but I'm feeding, like, now I'm getting excited as the producer. Like, hey, ask him this. Hey, ask him this. And I'm sure the host was like, I'm doing the interview.
You're being a fan.
Right.
You're being a
I'm
fanboy.
freaking out on the other side here. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I could have said it, and still, I hope to. I guess, and then Vinny brought this up, like somebody you model your career after. Could you imagine just sitting down for 15 to 20 minutes with Jim Ross? And just,
I don't think I could do it for 15 or 20 minutes.
it'd have to be an hour, right? Or something
I don't
even
even know if I
longer.
could do it for an hour.
Man.
It would be just so much fun. And the other thing about Jim
It
Ross.
would certainly be a slobber knocker.
Oh, my God, it would be! It's busted! It's Don the Crimson Mask!
Okay, guys. Grayson Allen just walked in the room.
By God, it's Grayson Allen! Like, so on our show, if you don't know this, on Levac and Gaz, we think there's
Cheap-
this player
cheap plug for your
cheap
show.
plug. That's right, some cheap plug right here in Albany, New York. On our show, we do a bit where this basketball player is a heel, and we hit the music. We hit Stone Cold's music. By God, it's Austin's music! Like, you can sell that, but what makes that funny is that, and this happens when I go home a lot, like say we're drinking and stuff, I would start goofing around and start calling matches, like if people playing video games or like people would wrestle and get drunk, so I'd call it as JR.
Yeah.
My God! It's his music! But I would call the matches like Jim Ross, but there would be people there who don't know who Jim Ross is. But because they see how animated I'm getting and the ridiculous voice that I'm using
Yes.
and how stupid the phrases are, I don't say stupid, but like how outlandish they are, that they love it. They're not even knowing who Jim Ross
that's
is,
great.
but finding out his style is funny enough that people would love it. I have just one more person on my list, and I think this might
Me as
finish
well.
off
And I bet
everybody's list.
Nobody
Somebody
said
takes
this
my
guy.
number 1. I'm gonna.
Oh, come on. I would hope
This is number
we
2
have
for
to
me.
have it. We all have to have it.
Is it Bobby the Brain Heenan
Yes,
for
it
everybody?
is for
Look, you
me.
humanoid. He was my number 1, and you just took it.
I'm gonna have Tig Star with Bobby the Brain Heenan. Why we love him so much.
Oh, he was just the greatest. I mean, and you think about the chemistry when you teamed up these commentators as a duo. Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. Was there any better?
Woo.
I mean, those were
no.
the fun times. Just the chemistry they had. Bobby with the one-liners and just everybody calling him Weasel. And Bobby was number 2 on my list too. I mean, God, I wish he was still doing his thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he really
He's still
was.
with us at least.
He absolutely
but,
is.
it's unfortunate the health problems.
Real American. It's my second favorite theme song. Gorilla goes, oh, why is that? All the rest are tied.
Nice.
Bobby the Brain Heenan, like I know I talked about Ventura being the great heel broadcaster. He took it to a whole new level because he was managing and then he was doing this. The classic Heenan is the Ric Flair Rumble.
Yes.
I knew he was going to do it. I told you all along.
Yep.
Like that's it's
I love
laugh
that.
out
And
loud
it was
funny.
like, yes.
Yes.
Oh.
In the beginning, he's just like, no. And at that one point in the match, he's like, take a walk, Rick, take a walk. He's trying to manage as he's commentating. This is brilliant. But
I just love, I knew it.
And you gotta love the one-liners. One of the one-liners that sticks out in my mind all the time is WrestleMania 7, Warlord Bulldog, and Warlord's hammering on the Bulldog, and Gorilla Monsoon's like, oh no, I think he broke a rib, and then Bobby's just like, oh, just pull one out of that mutt. Everything.
What about SummerSlam 91? Perfect, don't hit the referee. So Monsoon goes, well, if he hits the referee, it'll be a disqualification. Nail him!
There was no chemistry like those two.
No,
come
they
on.
were so good.
Gorilla and Bobby, oh my God.
Setting it up for each other over the plate, and they were hitting it out of the park for each other. I have to bring up this. I know all of our lists are now done, but one name none of us brought up was a long-tenured broadcaster, was Jerry the King Lawler.
No, I have a good reason why I didn't put Jerry on the list.
I'll start with you, Dan America. Why is the King not on your list?
The King is not on my list because although I always love it when Jerry gets excited about the ladies, one thing
those little red noses.
One thing that I didn't like about Jerry is I guess I'll call it the Michael Cole effect. It's where that Jerry is saying something just to sell it, or that he's being told to say it, and he still does it, and you knew that he was being fake about it, because what it came down to for me was, who do I like better, Vince or Jerry, Jesse or Jerry? And Jerry got bumped to number 6 just because Jerry let the other, he had to sell it.
Right, you had to sell it. Right, he wanted to be. He wasn't authentic. He wasn't authentic about it. That's an interesting point about that. Vinny, go right ahead.
Jerry didn't make my list just purely because it's like, while he may be one of the most constant announcers WWE's had in some time, there was always something weird about him. Whether it was the fact that he was aging, and for the same reasons they would get rid of somebody like a JR, they didn't get rid of King. The fact that he was like Teflon. He could do nothing wrong. He could get arrested, domestic violence, DUIs, any of that stuff. He got accused of rape. None of it stuck. He kept getting off it. Not to say that affects how he was on the mic. I just think King doesn't add up quite to... Actually, I just realized I had one on my list I didn't mention.
Oh, who did you not mention? Go ahead. Let's do the King thing first. I'll make sure we recap your list. We'll get to that on the recap, because I thought we went ahead all 5 for you.
No,
I'm going to say this about King. He didn't do anything that no one else couldn't do, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, if you take King out and put someone else there... Could someone else not have screamed out puppies? Could someone else not work with Jim Ross?
He didn't even make up the line.
I was on the fence with the King. Like, before I got tongue-tied, what I was trying to say is that when Jerry was able to be himself, he was phenomenal.
Yes.
But when Jerry had to sell something, that's when it took away from the character. It took away from your enjoyment, because, you're watching and you're thinking, oh, Jerry, they told you to say that, didn't they?
Is that why he also was not on your list, Tig? Jerry the King Lawler?
Yeah, I always liked Jerry, but... I don't know. There's so many other ones out there that I could think that are much better than Jerry.
Vinny, I want to make sure we're going to do our recap first, but I'll let you start with the recap. We did miss one from you.
All right. So, number 5, Vince McMahon. Number 3, Gorilla Monsoon. Number 2, Bobby Heenan. Number 1, Jim Ross. But number 4, I forgot to mention this. Obviously not on anybody else's list. Joey Styles. Oh, my God!
Yeah.
I struggled between him and Vince, and I looked at it, I'm like, okay, Vince has to be number 5 because Styles was a one-man commentator.
Yeah, no partner.
He had no partner. He had to do color. He had to do play-by-play, and he could do both. Now, he wasn't as good when he came to WWE, and for the same reason you had said about Lawler. You could tell that he wasn't necessarily himself. ECW, I don't think anybody else could have been put in that position and done anywhere near as good as Styles did.
The amazing part about Styles, when he started off, so what is this, 94, 93? He's like 24 years old doing that.
Oh, yeah.
He's extremely young. You can't find 25-year-old broadcasters on ESPN, on CBS. It's very rare. You can count them maybe on one hand of who they are.
I'm shocked we can't on ESPN.
Yeah, maybe not even. Maybe there's a few, if any.
I mean the team, so just saying.
And he's one of what? The 3... biggest promotions in America at that time. He's doing that by himself. He really, truly was amazing at what he's pulling off.
I didn't say AJ Styles, did I? I feel like I'm looking back. I'm like, did I say AJ?
Was he phenomenal? All right, so that's your list. I'm going to swing it back over to Dan America. Give a recap of your top 5 list again.
All right, my top 5. At number 5, Vince McMahon. Number 4, Jesse the Body Ventura. Number 3, Gorilla Monsoon. Number 2, good old JR. But number 1 is Bobby the Brain Heenan, because you humanoids just don't understand.
Tig, your top 5 again.
Number 5, Vince McMahon. Number 4, good old JR. Number 3, Jesse the Body Ventura. Number 2, Bobby Heenan. And number 1, Bobby Heenan's great sidekick for many years, Gorilla Monsoon.
I love that list. It's very similar to mine. The only difference is I have Michael Cole at 5, Jesse at 4, Gorilla Monsoon at 3, Bobby the Brain Heenan at 2, and good old Jim Ross, JR, at number 1. So, again, we had a feeling we were going to fly through our top 5. But
record timing.
We did it for a reason, because it was WrestleMania this past weekend. And we're just going to slightly go around. I'm going to start with Vinny, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Your initial, I guess, takeaway from WrestleMania, has anything changed? Your overall thoughts on this year's WrestleMania from the card? I
loved it. I personally loved it. I don't know if I was so hot on the fact of the time of the show, and not so much the time, how late it went. I 100% feel that the card should go 5, 6, 7 hours. Started a little earlier in the day. Make it a matinee. Do something like that. We had discussed that, Tig. If they started at 1 o'clock and it ends at 9, you have a full day of wrestling. It's the Super Bowl of wrestling, and that way everybody gets to go to bed at a normal time, get to work.
What, are you getting old, Vinny?
But you know what? I'm thinking of you.
The benefits, nice. Right.
But overall, though, Mania for me, man, one of the best ones in years, top to bottom. I think just about every match was amazing. Some of them you could tell were cut a little bit short, but they still did a good job at storytelling. I personally don't have an issue with Roman going over Taker. I think it makes sense in storyline. It makes sense to push that next star, whether we agree with that next star or not. No, you gotta look at it. Who else should have ended Taker's undefeated, or not his undefeated streak?
AJ Styles, Nakamura.
Yeah, but Styles,
Balor, Kevin Owens.
Here's the thing, though. One, can you actually see Kevin Owens going over Taker at WrestleMania?
Oh yeah, I could see
why.
it.
Why KO over Taker? I got to hear this.
For the promos alone, if Kevin Owens beat Taker at Mania, he would do a better job of bragging about it than Paul Heyman.
Yeah, but for me, KO just lacks, not to say that he couldn't, not to say that he shouldn't, because he should. He deserves that spotlight. There's something he's lacking where there's a legitimacy he doesn't have that Roman does, in my opinion.
What's the legitimacy that Roman has? Is it
He's got a better look than Owens. He can talk. He
what
can go
is
in
the look
ring.
that Roman really has, other than he looks kind of like The Rock because they're related?
It comes down to the business of the WWE, because you bring up the point about the time of the broadcast. Like 1 to 8 makes more sense. You could see that, but how many people are they going to cost the pay-per-view buys, the non-WWE network buys, the West Coast viewers? I think there's still a percentage of people who are not WWE network subscribers who would get WrestleMania. Yeah,
okay.
they just would, because it's the biggest event of the year. Now, back to the Reigns-Owens thing. There's a part of it where, and I know it's the hardest thing for us to do, if we take it away from us diehard wrestling fans, because we're always going to be there, if you had to have Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns walk into a business and you have to tell them which one of these guys is going to sell more merchandise, more toys, going to be on the posters, it's going to be Roman Reigns. Like that, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's a better looking dude, and no weird way to say that. Like that's why they're going to sell Roman Reigns over KO.
Hogan was balding with a handlebar mustache,
but he was jacked out of his mind. He looked like a come from real life comic book hero.
You know, that's great and all.
Hogan also had proven to have box office appeal, and it worked in other promotions.
The look is a implied thing.
Where was Hogan? Why was he not at Mania? He's down in Orlando.
I know we should never.
Well, let's do this.
Hogan.
Me and Tig were pissed about this. Where was Hogan?
He was at his beat shop all weekend. He was in the area. I think the WWE dropped the ball in inviting him back. They must still be scared about the backlash.
Why couldn't he even showed up at Lesnar versus Goldberg and have like Lesnar Hogan stare down? It could have worked.
I was hoping to see that.
The part where it would have worked. The part where it would have worked is at the opening when New Day's out there. But then I'm thinking like, oh, they're not bringing Hogan out with the New Day out there.
Why not?
That just is it's like, okay, this is a little too real.
Let's go to that match. Let's go to that Goldberg-Lesnar match, by the way, because all of us, I think, had doubts of what could happen, what was going to happen. Whoever wants it first, Tig or Dan America, your thoughts on the overall Goldberg-Lesnar match. Were you okay with how it went?
I was okay with how it went because Goldberg lost.
I honestly agree with that.
I loved it. Goldberg going to Suplex City. I mean, Lesnar getting the title back. I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. The whole pay-per-view was great. And, there were a lot of great highlights, and that was one of them for me.
I think they worked it perfect, too. I think they had a feeling that at some point Goldberg was going to get booed because there's just that diehard wrestling fan that may have been older that didn't like Goldberg.
If I could give a bit of criticism to the match was kind of like a video game, and whoever picked Goldberg had a cheat code. Because Goldberg, he did what? A couple spears and the jackhammer. I think he got a punch or something in there. You got some knees in there.
They hit the wrong button.
Yeah, they hit the wrong button. They dropped the controller. But, I like to see a little wrestling in my matches, and that's why I never care for Goldberg. Because Goldberg is just, all right, flashy move, done. And that's what I liked about the WrestleMania match because it was flashy move, suplex, flashy move, suplex.
All right, that's
flashy
it.
Move,
that's what it is, right?
I think Goldberg's kind of done at this point.
Yeah, he's almost 50 years old.
Let's talk about Triple H and Seth Rollins.
Wasn't
that a great match? I mean, I think it went higher our expectation. It exceeded. What is that? What I'm trying to say here. It exceeded our expectations.
I can't believe Rollins lasted that long. I honestly thought he was going to have a knee issue throughout the entire thing.
There's my issue with it.
What?
Okay, so they built up this great injury storyline. Next night, Rollins is back on Raw wrestling like it was no thing.
So you thought they should have sold the injury less in the match? Is that what you're thinking?
I just hate injury storylines in general.
Because it took away from what Rollins could have done as an athlete in the ring. Like say you take away the injury storyline, we would have seen peak Rollins versus one of the best in Triple H. I could see that, but I was okay with how it went down. I'm glad Rollins got put over a bit. I don't know the last time besides Sting that Triple H won a WrestleMania match. I don't know what it was. I don't think he needed the rub, to be honest, but
I'm going to give you a pass, Tig, on not letting me talk about Goldberg and Lesnar. But
talk about Goldberg and Lesnar.
I'm going to turn heel on you. Come on.
Spear! Back out, he speared Tig! Then he just did it! Go ahead, Vinny.
Quick and simple when it comes to Goldberg and Lesnar for me. I just hated the match. I hated the fact that it had to be Brock versus Goldberg. I like the fact that Brock walked out because at least there's somebody that's on the roster that is going to kind of be around. But it's just like, I looked at that and I'm like, you're doing it again. You're putting in two part-timers, or not part-timers in 2004, but you're putting in two guys that night after Mania probably aren't going to be there. Now, Lesnar was. Goldberg was. Well, he was off-screen.
Right.
But you're looking at guys that are not going to be wrestling at the next pay-per-view. And I hate that. I really, really hate the fact that they put the belt back on Lesnar.
That's an interesting point. And Tig, I kind of need your perspective on this because this is a debate I've had with other wrestling fans.
And I do want to get into Rollins and Triple H coming up because that was my favorite match on the card.
You and I, and Dan America to a bit, we all grew up during the Monday Night Wars, right? We saw WCW versus the WWF at the time, and because of how the business was at that point, you had to have the champions on every Raw and every Nitro. And maybe wrestling fans like us, we got spoiled. Like, we thought that's how wrestling should be. But you remember the days where it was like, if you saw Ric Flair show up, that was once every 3 months he would show up. It almost makes it a bigger deal, I guess. It's like a difference.
That's why I don't have a problem with the whole Brock Lesnar thing. I still think he's an attraction.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs to be there all the time. I think they would burn him out, and people wouldn't be so interested. When I see Paul Heyman come out and address the crowd, I get excited. Even when Paul Heyman's just there, and then he teases the crowd, and Brock's not going to be here tonight. He pulls out or whatever. I mean, it's just both of those guys are a big attraction.
It's a ticket thing. If in 3 months Lesnar showing up, you're going to find out where he is.
Yeah. But the reason that yes, I agree that it could be the aspect of us being 90s kids and watching it then. I look at it like this. In the 80s, how good was WWE's mid-card?
In the 80s, how good was WWE's mid-card? It was okay. I mean,
how good was their main event? insanely good.
Yeah, insanely. It was awesome.
So you had enough caliber to be able to do these weekly tapings. Now with 3 hours of Raw, you're pulling your champion away, and you're going 2, 3, 4 pay-per-views now where your champion's not even fighting. First off, 30-day rule.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It kills the top of the card, because how are you going to sell people when they're not champs?
How are you supposed to build somebody up without getting a rub off of Lesnar, even if it's with a loss?
I miss the jobbers showing up each week on the show.
I think that should be back.
The Barry Horowitz, the Iron Mike Sharps of the world.
Brooklyn Brawlers.
Yeah.
James Ellsworth.
I want to get your thoughts back over here on Triple H and Rollins. What are you going to say about that match?
Triple H Rollins. To me, that was the best match of the card.
Wow.
I can understand a little bit that the build-up to it may have been subpar. But, when it gets to that last week of Mania, and as a fan, and even as a promoter, not to 100% know if Rollins is going to go into Mania. Like, that alone, I like the fact I didn't know it was going to happen. And then the match, it exceeded my expectations. I thought they did insanely well. I love the entrance for Triple H with the police
that was great.
On the bike with Stephanie. Best match of the card. I think they went a little long, and I think that may be why the ladies' match later on in the card got a little bit less time. But that match, what match would be the best on the card if not?
Look at that. You set me up for that. And I was going to answer that question. My best match of the night was the triple threat tag match.
Knew you were going to say it. The Hardys return.
The Hardys return. Now, credit
to
to
a 9-minute match.
I'm going to slow clap you guys. Credit for calling the Hardy return on Mania. I doubted you. How dare I doubt you two? You guys called it, but still, I was sitting there with my father, and I was sitting there with my buddy from back home, and I was like, how insane it'd be if the Hardys came out right now, like half joking, like, really? And their music hit. I lost it. Like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then Cole, to his credit, says, Mania is about to be broken or something. Like, sold the gimmick as well. That was my favorite match because the crowd was so into it. Enzo and Cass are over. Cesaro is a huge popular guy. They did some cool spots, jumping off the ladders and stuff. I love the ladder match.
By the way, Sheamus starting to get pops now, too. Cesaro's worked for Sheamus.
I think that Enzo really helped sell that match the way that he was, crawling up the ladder. He's scrambling to try and get it. And I don't think people appreciate Enzo for the right reasons sometimes. And I think that Enzo is a better actor than he is an athlete. And in that match, he really brought that out of himself.
And that was your favorite match as well, Tig, and Dan America? You guys like the tag team match the best?
Well, the tag team match was great, but mine was the Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
For, Brock taking Goldberg to Suplex City. By the way, I just want to say, guys, Bleacher Report today reporting that WrestleMania 33 was the most watched in the company's history.
Oh, wow.
See, that makes a lot of sense. I just remember seeing so many people I went to high school with on Facebook who I had no clue. One, I don't think they are wrestling fans. If they were closet fans in the 90s. So, I'm seeing these people posting about Mania, and I'm like, I never knew you liked wrestling.
Well, you know what? Barry Manilow's coming out of the closet, so why not the wrestling fan?
I had no idea.
Me neither.
Barry Manilow was gay?
I could not believe it.
I had no idea.
Oh, man.
All right, this last one here, we're going to get to the Taker.
Is Pat Patterson single?
I'm sorry.
I didn't get to clarify my favorite match.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My favorite match was Aries and Neville.
Really? On the undercard?
That was an amazing match.
I'm a huge fan of the cruiserweights because I like, hard, oh, come on.
You didn't even watch that match.
Wait, what do you like? You like hard what? What do we?
I like hard ironclad wrestling where they're just going at it from start to finish.
And
where
bodies.
the crowd starts cheering, fight forever.
Nipples, too, on men.
And, I don't like a match to slow down sometimes, but when cruiserweights slow down the match, they sell those rest holds better than the guys on the main card.
How do you want it? Fast.
Should they have put that on the card
I want
itself?
it so fast.
Why did they keep that off the card? That's what I wanted, because it was on the undercard, right?
Yeah, along with the IC title match.
Yeah.
That was I don't agree with that at all that they do that. It's no respect for those titles.
You can
Why would you put an IC title fight on a pre-show?
Right.
Start the pay-per-view at 6 because I really, really don't understand. I guess maybe with the network, they're trying to push people to get to the network. I get it, but it's like, how's this? Air the first hour of WrestleMania on USA, but start Mania at 6.
Right, and they're not claiming it's the pre-show. They're just saying it's extended Mania, right? There's like Mania here, then there's Mania, because they put that on the USA Network. And I think I had said on last week's podcast, like, they're going to want to sell something on the network to make it like be the viral moment. It was Gronk. Gronk coming out, helping Mojo win. And somebody called the Mojo win. Shout out to whoever it was. Was it you, Vinny?
I thought it was you.
No, I called
Strowman.
Oh, I thought I called Strowman. Maybe
I said Mojo was my alternate.
Oh, okay.
I just kind of had a feeling that they were going to have Mojo win.
I saw him win. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That actually is a good move. Why couldn't they have done that with Sandow?
They had a promo on SmackDown leading into WrestleMania that kind of clued me in that, Mojo's probably going to win.
All right, so we've said everything we like about Mania. We'll hold off Taker for another 5 to 10 minutes. But first, was there anything you didn't like? Because I have one thing that stood out to me, and I'll leave this one off. The only thing I didn't like about Mania, I loved it. I think it's probably a top 5 to 6 Mania of all time. That's how good it was, top to bottom. What happened in the Wyatt Orton match? Like, I was so excited for that. It turned out to be just a garbage, like, and Orton wins. I just didn't get it.
Like I was saying, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but when they wrestled, what was it, Backlash? They had no chemistry.
None.
So what makes you think that they're not one? They didn't work the house show loop. When SmackDown came to Albany, Wyatt worked Luke Harper and had a barn burner. So why couldn't you have put Luke Harper in the match, had Randy do next to nothing, hit an RKO out of nowhere, and then take the pin that way?
And then also take it on Harper and not on Wyatt.
Right, but at least that way, one, you could protect Bray, and two, you could still get a good match.
And the bugs on the mat,
that
the
did,
image
that
of
just didn't make sense.
insect, it was just stupid.
It was like it literally.
I
like
kind of liked that part. It was new.
You and I were talking about it.
Yeah,
like, do you think the kids liked it?
Yeah, it was more of like the kids. Maybe we would have thought it was cool as as children. And apparently, Dan America thought it was fantastic.
No, I didn't think it was fantastic. Okay, you guys didn't like that. Okay, I didn't mind. I was on the fence about it. I knew that Randy Orton was going to win the title.
I think
it was
knew
filler
that.
for me. But let's talk about the worst match of the night, the piece of garbage match, the match where I found the time to make my son's school lunch
Can I
for
guess?
the next day.
Can I guess what it might be for you?
Okay.
Does it
go
involve someone with the initials of a J and a C?
Why, yes, it does.
Wow! Dan America did not like a John
The
Cena match.
garbage
Why?
match, and now
He didn't touch.
I have even more reason to hate John Cena and Nikki Bella now because when my wife found out that John Cena proposed to Nikki Bella after that match, she turns to me and says, "Can we watch Total Divas?"
No.
All right,
Awful.
so anybody else have any complaints about Mania, Tig or Vinny?
I think the both women's matches should have got more time. 100%. Got about, 8 minutes at best for the women's match, the SmackDown women's match. I think that was because they were up against time crunch. The Raw women's match. Am I the only one that felt it was weird after all of these 20, 30-minute matches, solo matches? Am I the only one that found it weird they went 13 minutes with a fatal four-way?
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, they're all due to timing.
Yeah.
I was disappointed.
But was that storyline as hot as the one it was last year when it was like the four horsewomen? Did they deserve it, even though they're really good?
See, but the thing is, I feel like you could have done the quick eliminations like they did with Sasha and Nia, and then have a barn burner with Bailey and Paige. Or not Paige.
Charlotte and Bailey, yeah.
Well, the best moment in that match was after they all took out Nia Jax and Charlotte saying, all right, high five, and they go after her. But the match I felt was lacking. They could have done way better. Good for Bailey to have a win at WrestleMania.
She deserves it at this point.
Let's close with this final topic. Let's talk about how the night closed, and that was The Undertaker. Your takeaway, I guess I'll start again here. We'll go left to right here. We'll let Tig have the first shot at it. I guess me and him are going to be a little biased because you know our ways of The Undertaker thinking. For me, I liked as a wrestling fan, I thought it was cool. Like, wow, he's done. Like, this is it. The fans are going to honor him and all that cool stuff that goes with it. But it was like watching Willie Mays for me play for the Mets. It was like Joe Namath playing for the Rams. Like these sports guys who had been great at one point and they're not great anymore.
Yeah.
If he'd retired
That was Roman's fault.
Well, it was not Roman's fault.
Stop.
Roman was botching.
He should have. Undertaker is 52 years old. He has one hip. He should have been done 5 years ago. He had a horrible match against Lesnar years ago. The last good match he had was Michaels. Like, he's not good in the ring, and we just have to accept that. That's okay.
And how can you blame Roman for the botches
Because he's Roman?
Every match consists of two people working and helping each other. Taker,
and Roman could have helped a little bit more. Jesus, what? Taker's 52 with one hip.
One of the push the wheelchair down the ring too?
God. Jesus.
Well, we don't know what was going on under that ring.
Oh my God.
But how many times did Roman try to pick up Undertaker? 2-3 times?
Right.
And that looked embarrassing. It looked bad, and you could tell he was getting frustrated.
How many more times does they have to do it, right?
Yeah,
I think it was time for Taker to walk. That's why I felt. Go ahead.
I thought JR sold that very well, though.
Oh, JR. Great to see JR
did a great job selling that.
I was just happy to see JR be announced.
Match going so long
definitely.
you can't pick him up.
But, I mean, was Roman Reigns the guy to put Undertaker in the retirement?
No, definitely not.
All right, so you say Kevin Owens. I want to hear your...
I don't say Kevin Owens. That was just a name that I threw out.
Okay.
However, I felt that the person that should have retired Taker should have been Kane.
Kane.
You know, that's not bad, but given...
that means Kane would have been better than Taker at the end, which is a weird way to have that
storyline. It brings closure to the Taker-Kane storyline if in the end, when Taker is running out of gas, Kane finally gets him.
I would have liked Kane and Taker to go in the last match, but Taker win and they both are done. I would have liked that.
See, for me, I don't know if it should have been Reigns. You said Styles, Dan. I'm going to disagree with that one too, just because I don't think Styles needs it. Is he deserving of being in that spot?
Well,
yeah,
it's because he's just a phenomenal one.
It's because he's 38 and doesn't need the help.
Right.
When it comes to Cena, same thing. He doesn't need it.
And also, Cena doesn't wrestle; he entertains.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, when it comes down to it, why not Rollins? You could have done somebody like a Rollins, maybe a Finn Balor, but I find that hard to believe. I find Balor hard to believe just because of his size against somebody like The Undertaker. Not that I don't want to see somebody smaller wrestle in the ring because Balor's amazing. Nakamura would have been cool.
He's also old, though, up closer to his 40s.
Samoa Joe would have been cool, but yet again, same thing. I just feel like Roman, when you look at it...
What about Vince McMahon?
No. Roman...
It was me all along, Austin! It was me all along!
Cheer Roman, boo Roman. He gets a reaction from every single person in that building. That's why I think it should have been Roman.
Are we not giving, I guess, the WWE enough credit that maybe they have this big plan that this is the setup to a Reigns heel turn? That's the best way to get more heat.
I
love the fact Dan said that.
This is called... I can back this up, too. This is called, we've been trying to push this man for 3 years, and it's not sticking, so let's go nuclear.
Right. Okay, so nuclear. That's a great way to put it, because he would have been booed no matter what on that following Monday. I think everybody would agree with that. Reigns was going to booed on that Monday.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that he beat Taker sent that to nuclear heat, like you just said.
Yeah.
They had an FU Roman chant.
They had to have thought that was going to happen because we all in this room all knew that would happen. And actually, it was probably exceeded what we thought was going to happen with an FU Roman chant to keep the podcast clean.
I think they're embracing it at this point. And you know what? That's fine because you got to look at it. 10 years ago, Cena was in the same boat. Cena was getting booed or he was getting cheered, but he never was getting one or the other.
He's still getting booed.
But that's my point. That just shows that you either love Cena or you hate Cena, but you are there.
I walk out on him.
Okay, maybe us diehard fans do, but the casual fans love Cena. And the casual fans are the ultimate fans that really make up WWE.
The casual fan does not love Cena.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I argued
Define the casual
about
fan.
this the other night. He said that to me via text message, and I didn't agree with him.
The casual fan to me is somebody who watches Raw and SmackDown here or there. They don't pay attention to storylines. They watch Mania, maybe the Big Four. But the thing is, at all of those Big Four pay-per-views, Cena has been spotlighted for the last 10 years.
Forced, implied popularity.
And you're telling me somebody, okay, Austin was forced in 98. How's that?
Yeah.
People actually liked Austin.
Okay.
But here's the thing.
So what about Brett? Brett was forced in 92.
People actually liked Brett.
And some people like Roman and some people like Cena.
If Cena wasn't working, they would have fixed it. At some point, they would have said he's not the guy. And they never did.
The reason why I don't like Cena is because Cena brings out the fakeness of it. Everyone always says, oh, that's fake. And then you point to Cena. Then they point to Cena and say, "Look, he's not even hitting the guy." And that's when I Cena. Is that the casual fan, Vinny? The person that's constantly pointing out that it's fake?
Tig, I'm sorry to do this to you.
Yeah.
Hogan couldn't wrestle that well.
When? In his prime?
That's another point. He couldn't wrestle that well. He had a few moves that he did okay. He was the originator of the 5 moves of doom. Yet, he was over like wildfire, and people pointed out, oh, that's fake.
He built up with this, what we all love today.
And that's my...
Hogan could sell a back rake. Cena couldn't sell a back rake.
But that's my whole point.
Good point.
Hogan couldn't go that well in the ring, and neither could Cena. But he can now.
Vinny, look at my face.
I mean, Hogan certainly
you know what that is.
He's no Ric Flair, Hogan, but I mean, he did good in the ring. He could have came out and fought the Undertaker and put him out.
Could you imagine if Cena
Seriously.
beat Taker, the nuclear heat that would have happened? I'm going to stop here because you guys could go with Cena and Hogan all podcast long.
We're getting on a tangent.
Let me finish
You
my
guys
point
get
here.
1 minute apiece for Vinny and Dan America on Cena. Then I'm letting you guys back in your cages.
I don't need to go any longer. He's not going to back down.
No, look at this. This is all right. Tell me what this face is.
Is it?
That's
People don't
Cena-
see our faces,
That
Dan.
is Cena trying to. All right, I will describe my face. Just now, my mouth was wide open. My tongue is out.
Oh, God,
my
what are you
eyes
waiting
popping,
for?
And right now,
My God,
I am
something's
Cena
about to
selling the
erupt.
STF. I am overacting. I am terrible at my job. But because Make-A-Wish kids want to meet me, I get to be champion all the time.
Dan America will not be invited to the John Cena Nikki Bella wedding. Hopefully,
No.
we all will be.
Oh,
though.
I'm
I think it'll be-
invited.
Oh, you are invited.
I'm the
Great.
best man.
I'm all about free drinks.
We're back next
I was the best man
week
at his first wedding.
for As the Heel Turns podcast.
He
For
left his
Dan
wife.
America, for Tigman, for Vinny, I'm Gaz. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back again soon.
As the Heel Turns with Gaz, Vinny, Dan America, and the Tig Man.